Okay, and we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day. My name is Clara Lyons-DeVaughn. I am the broker owner of Lyonsview Realty. We provide residential, commercial for small businesses and nonprofits, and property management services. So, here at Lyonsview Realty, we're committed to making sure that you have the resources, the information, and the tips to ensure you are making the best financial and intellectual decisions. We want you to build your wealth and your intellectual wealth building power now and in the future. So we stream live every Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube and on Facebook. And there's a lot of information on the channel about financial and intellectual wealth. And a lot of times people don't look at intellectual wealth, that thing between your brain, as a wealth source, but it is definitely a wealth source. And the author series is about our intellectual wealth, sharing information with people through their stories, their experiences that help you get to a different place in life and build your wealth intellectually and build your wealth in your lifestyle. So I have a very, very special guest today, Martin Owens. How you doing, Martin?
I am good. How are you?
Oh my goodness, I am percolating as all we are. I have known you for many, many years when I first came to Victory in Christ Christian Center, and we were in the old building.
Yes, in the
Uh,
blue building, as we call it. Yep.
yes, at that time. And we met back then, and I also met your wife, Tonya,
Yeah.
back then as well. And, we forged a relationship and a friendship that has lasted many, many, many years.
Yeah.
And I have, fond memories of you both. But today you are here in a duo capacity because you're
Yes.
representing not only yourself, but you're also representing Tanya, who's not here with us today,
Correct.
but
Correct.
she is here because
Yeah.
she's definitely here in spirit. So tell everyone a little bit about yourself, and then we'll
Oh,
get into it.
okay.
Yeah.
This is the part I'm not great at, but I will try my best.
Okay.
My name, as you said, is Martin Owens, and Tanya and I were married for 2 months short of 15 years. Um, we got married in 2005, and I have had an amazing marriage. Really, just um, we never expected it to be as amazing as it was, but we had this belief that the happiest people don't necessarily have the best of everything, that they make the best of everything, and we certainly did that. Um, and so in 2017, she was diagnosed with stage 3 triple negative breast cancer. Um, and it was a shocker, but she fought the good fight with that, and she in that first battle she did the miraculous, even according to her doctors, when she beat it. And through it, it was still hard. It was, she went through hell with it, but she really was amazing in her fight with the cancer. And so she was keeping journals, keeping notes. And Tanya is not the necessarily most organized person, so her journals were plentiful, and her notes were here and there. Um, Unfortunately, it had come back 2 years after she beat it in 2019, and it came back. It traveled to her lung, and it was stage 4 then. And even then, she was beating that. It was the size of a softball in June of 2019, and by December, they said it was down to about the size of maybe a ping pong ball. Um, but in January of 2020, January 31st to be exact, I had to take her to the ER, and it turned out that it traveled to her brain.
Mm.
And after that, she fought that very well. But in August 7th of 2020, she passed away from it.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sorry.
um, but the first um, battle was amazing. And so just decided to, fulfill her legacy and write the book as if I was her. So it's still her book, and her words, through the help of the journal and the notes and stories I had to get from friends, where I wasn't there. But I knew my wife so very well that I was able to write the book as if I was her, with her feelings and her thoughts, not only towards everyone else, but in terms of me as well. So that was an amazing process in itself.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that we share in common is that we're both widows.
Yes.
We both lost our spouses, and it's a difficult journey to um, to continue. After, especially after you've had a really phenomenal
Yeah.
relationship with another human being,
Yeah.
who I would say Tonya was your soulmate. You
Yes.
know,
Absolutely. Yes.
yeah, and you guys complemented each other so beautifully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even uh, I'll call it the last chapter,
Hmm.
and it's not even the last chapter because the chapters are still continuing,
True.
and she's
Yes.
in them.
Yeah.
In that chapter where she transitioned, and you guys began to work together
Hmm.
in your passion, and it's always
Yeah.
when you find your helpmate and you find that person who can take you, you guys can work together and
Hmm.
build something and fulfill on a vision. That's a really powerful place. And
Yeah.
I experienced seeing that with you guys, and it was just beautiful to watch and to see. And anyone who knows Tanya knows how phenomenal she is as a person, a human being. She's extremely talented.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
just
In many ways. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, great
So
with
yeah. So she left Comcast after 21 years, and came to work with me. And even that story is amazing how that happened. Um, but she we had a lot of businesses together. We had those several streams of income, as we always talk about. And the major one was the home improvement business. That's the one that made the most money. And so when she started, with me, um, she came in, and in the first 6 weeks she brought in more sales than I did the whole entire year before.
Mhm.
So she really did her thing, and that she. I did not like the business aspect of it. She loved it, and she was great at it. One of the first jobs that she went to with me was just installing a water line into somebody's refrigerator. Um,
Mhm.
it was $85 job. I mean, it was really that simple. And she was sitting there talking to the client, and just in their regular conversation, she was looking at the kitchen, and she started asking her questions. Well, have you thought about redoing the whole entire kitchen?
Yeah.
Because the kitchen cabinets, there were three different styles of kitchen cabinets that made up the kitchen.
Oh,
And so, just in that conversation, by the time we left with a check for a deposit to redo the whole entire kitchen. And
dang.
yeah, so she just, I would have never done that. I wouldn't even have asked her about it. I would have just gotten them, $85 and kept it moving. And she was just that kind of person. She would go into people's houses and make them feel comfortable, really explain things to them and give them visions for what things could look like, things that I would never have done and still haven't done. So it really was amazing, living that dream of working with each other. And I understand not every couple can do that, but she really, um, brought it to a whole new level, to the point where after she passed, I knew I was shutting the business down because I knew I was just done. I couldn't go back to the way it was. And I, tried to do jobs for friends and family, and even that, I kind of feel like God was moving me away from that anyway. Simple little things like all I had to do was change somebody's light bulbs, and I bought the wrong light bulbs. I mean, so it was kind of like the anointing fell off of that. And I still could do work, but it just wasn't the same. And I knew that was going to be the case. It's just been a tough transition without her. So
Yeah, transitioning without your spouse, especially for things that you always did together,
exactly.
is
Yep.
is difficult. And you know, you may not be totally done with the season, but maybe that's just not the season for right now.
Right. Yeah.
which brings us to this book, because you did something that I wish I had done after Tonya passed, which is you took a year and you traveled.
Yeah.
Share a little bit about that.
So, I say this to people because, people are like, cancer is the worst. And in my experience, having other friends that had lost their spouses suddenly and instantly without any warning or whatever, I say it's not necessarily the worst because I got a chance to prepare for it. Um, I got a chance to honor her. I got a chance to throw a parade for her. I got a chance to do different things that you don't get to do when your spouse, passes instantly. So when she came home to start hospice, I, asked her, I'm like, well, what do you want to do about your, homegoing and all that kind of stuff? Do you want to be buried in your family's cemetery or whatever? And she's like, I don't care. What do you want to do? And I said, well, quite honestly, I want to get you cremated and take your ashes and travel all the places that we wanted to go together, all the places that we wanted to go together throughout the country. And she said, do it. And so, it was 3 weeks between the time she passed and the time we did her celebration of life um, on August 28th, 2020. And a little bit more than 2 weeks later, I was on the road and I was gone for a month and three days across the country, 9,001 miles across the country and back. And I literally slept in the van most of the time in the rest stops along the way, and visited some amazing sites and, got to spread her ashes in all those places. And so it was really the best decision I had made since she passed. It was by far the best decision I had made. And I kind of, I don't know if I could do it again. God definitely was with me. And, it was just me, her, and God on that trip. And got so much insight out of that trip. God just gave me a lot of understanding and downloads that have not only helped me, but have gone on. I do a lot of ministering to other people in their grief, whether it's their spouse or not. I'm able to talk to them about different things, especially guilt. And so, it really has been the best decision I made, and it really has been able to help other people through my own experience.
One of the other things that you did that I thought was so amazing, I call it the homegoing before the homegoing. And very seldom do people have an opportunity to, know what people thought and
Yeah.
felt about them before they go, because they're not at their homegoing, So
Right.
all the things that people say or express or wanted to say. And I thought what you did was amazing. So share a little bit about that.
You mean prior to her passing?
Yes, yes.
So she, her health was getting, she had her surgery, brain surgery, on February 3rd of 2020. And that was a lot to see. And come June, her health really didn't seem like it was getting better. Her memory, she had radiation done. And after the radiation, they said, she's going to have a little bit of memory loss. She might not remember where the keys are and stuff like that. She might struggle with her words. Well, she struggled a lot more than they said. So it wasn't, neither one of us was prepared for that. She forgot who some of her friends were, some of her closest girlfriends. One day she forgot who I was, just for a moment. I came and sat in front of her in the living room, and she's like, "Where's Martin?" And I said, "Well, who do you think I am?" And she looked at me. Then she's like, "Let me think for a second." And she put her head down. And then when she looked back up at me, her eyes were welled up, and she's like, "I don't want to ever forget you." And so it was a lot in the last 2 months. And so she went to the hospital because she had like a seizure. And this was in like around the 7th of July. So I had to rush her to the hospital, and come to find out that the cancer had spread from her. It was still in her brain. It was still in her lung. And now it was in her liver and a little bit on her hip. But what they kept on saying while she was in there was that the only thing she was concerned about, and the only thing she was worried about, was me being alone. They, everybody kept on saying that. So when I brought her home, you know, we I decided, she was just starting hospice. I wanted to let everybody know, my birthday was July 31st. This is now July 15th or so. And I told everybody, forget about my birthday. I don't care anything about that. We're going to celebrate her birthday 3 months early. Her birthday is October 25th. I said, we're going to throw her the biggest parade anybody's ever seen in the neighborhood on July 25th. And, different ones jumped in. Our brother Deacon Wayne, who runs the parking lot at the church, I told him what I needed to do and everything, and he went over. At the end of our neighborhood was an empty parking lot. It's a big parking lot of shopping, but stores were all closed down. So he organized how this whole thing was going to work out. I didn't even have to talk to him about it. He just knocked it all out. And basically that morning, I rolled her down to the end of our driveway, and for 2 hours, about 275 cars with, I would guess, about 500 to 700 people in there just slowly drove by, waved to her. I told them to decorate their cars with butterflies and high heels and our MTAG, More Than a Conqueror emblem and everything. And they just kept on coming. I mean, we literally, the stream of cars was a half a mile long. And I let the neighborhood know. I went on the neighborhood app and let them know, I'm like, look, we're going to be shutting down the neighborhood. This is what's going on and everything. And some of them even joined in the parade. Yeah. One person brought their dogs because they had emotional support dogs and everything. And it was amazing for 2 hours. She was overwhelmed, but it was an amazing thing. And at the end of it, my cousin had found a butterfly release company, and she had butterflies delivered. I was nervous about that because they come the day before and you have to keep them on ice and everything and then an hour before you take the ice off and let them start to come to life and everything. So at the end of the parade, I gave her the box, and they say to tell her what it is because you don't want to be surprised and be shocked and everything. And she opened up the box, and there was about 36 butterflies that came flying out, and they didn't all just leave at once. They slowly came out, and she was able to pick one up and put it to her face and kiss it before it flew away. And so it was an amazing experience. And so now every year on the passing, or the anniversary of her passing, at the approximate time of 5:20 p.m., which is approximately when she passed, I release butterflies. So in fact, I just ordered them yesterday so that they'll be here for August 7th for me to do that again. So it's been something I have done. And the other thing that was special that I got to do was, she didn't know it, but I had been, since she came home from getting her brain surgery in February, I had snuck upstairs and was working upstairs. So she stayed down in the living room because it was just too much up the stairs. And I was renovating, taking my office and her small walk-in closet, and I tore the wall down and I made a dream closet, boutique style dream closet for her and everything. And, it's hard to even describe, but she's a diva. And so there was a wall of her shoes, there was jewelry here and there, her clothing, which took a lot of organizing. And she never got to experience it. So the week before, which was my birthday, July 31st, pastors came over and I had to buy a stair lift just to get her up the stairs. And I installed the stair lift, and then we got her up there. Pastors helped, Bishop and Pastor Aisha both helped get her up the stairs and everything and show her. And, she was just amazed to see the closet and everything. It's tough to watch that video, but it's priceless to have that video, to be able to see how it's done and everything. So those kind of experiences, I'm just so grateful for. And like I said, those who have lost their spouses, without any warning, didn't have any kind of experiences like that, so they have a whole other level of grief.
Yeah, I have to commend you because the husband and the partner and the friend that you were to Tonya during that time was amazing to watch. And I was in that parade, I was in the cars that came through and was able to experience that with with you guys. It was just really, really phenomenal and heartwarming. And you are an incredible human being. I'm sure people tell you that all the time, but I just want to acknowledge it here today. Just the the depth of love that you showed and expressed and commitment to, life. I talk about, your love, your triumph, and, through all of the transitions, you just were a phenomenal human being. And I applaud you for that. So,
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot because of the kind of wife she was. It really was, and she was just, I tell people I built a lot of amazing things over the years, but she built me up better than anything I've ever built in my life. She always encouraged me from day one, all the way through. She was always encouraging and always supporting, and so she made it very easy to be that kind of husband to her because she was just, I mean, she was an amazing mom to Quentin. Um, so she really held it down. I mean, she was the strong one, and even in her pain, you would never know sometimes she was in pain because she didn't focus on that. She focused on life and living. And that was one of the things that was important about the book was to show that she didn't just fight for her life, she fought for her life. She did not want to give up. She was very angry at this cancer because it was interrupting her new life of running the businesses and everything. And, so she was just like, okay, let's get this over with because I got to get back to work. And, so the book really focuses on her journey, but it doesn't give cancer the focus. She the book explains, it talks about all the cancer, because I said at her homegoing, I have a PhD in my wife. I knew everything inside and out. So writing the book, I was able to do it as if I was her. And that was therapeutic to do because, it really it almost brought her back to life because I'm really having to write as if I'm her, not as myself. And it was a little uncomfortable because I'm writing things about myself that she said or that she put in her journal and everything. And she's had a lot to say about me, so it's really strange writing about yourself as your wife. But I was able to do it. And the first book it wasn't as tough as the second book because the first book I knew the outcome, and it was a lot more glorious and it was a lot more focused on her. She focused a lot on the good times. So she talked about the bad, the tough parts and everything, and they definitely existed. But she really wanted to focus on, her life and living and her experiences, and basically, she lived for the moment, and she wanted to talk about her journey. She talked about her girlfriends and her friends and the different stories that she had with them, and so she really didn't give cancer the chance to overwhelm her. It's like I said, I might have cancer, but cancer doesn't have me. That was her. If that was a poster, that would be Tonya. So so that yeah.
So how did you come up with the title, The Spider and the Butterfly?
Tonya loved butterflies.
Yes.
So she was she kind of well represented butterflies. So how the whole cancer battle started was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. It was early January of 2017. I mean, within probably a week or so after New Year's, and she's getting ready, getting dressed at the end of the bed, and a spider literally dropped down like she was little Miss Muffet. I mean, it's dropped down from the ceiling right next to her, and she was really, really afraid of spiders, which was weird because as a tomboy girl, she used to mess with insects. But anyway, she got up to run from it, and she slipped and fell, and she fell right on her face, but her hand was in the form of a fist, and she landed on it and hit her right in the breast. So it was almost like the same impact of punching yourself in the breast and everything. And what that did was, we didn't know it at the time, but that actually, imagine cancer is the yolk of an egg and the egg breaking open and the cancer is released. Well, that's kind of what happened. The cancer cell opened up, and at the same time, because she hit her breast, it also opened up blood vessels. And so the cancer got into her bloodstream. And for 4 months, she was sore, but she just thought it was, bruising from her breast or whatever, not realizing that cancer was growing inside of her to the point where by the time she got diagnosed, it was somewhere between a tennis ball and a baseball in size. And so we didn't know that was even possible. So we were talking to her oncologist, Dr. Meda, he explains, yeah, I've seen that happen with women that have car accidents where their breast hits the steering wheel and it releases it, and it causes the breast cancer to get released. So that was the name of the book, The Spider and the Butterfly, because the spider started the whole entire thing for the butterfly.
Wow. Wow. And if you were like to give you kind of did a synopsis of the book. She says,
The book is her journey from before, from before the cancer, really a New Year's before, all the way through, and just her reflection on her life. Finding different notes, and there's things in there I completely forgot about. Stories about us that I completely forgot about, and it's really her journey through it, and how she felt about everything. Even talks about how she felt about getting the mastectomy, and her concern for how I was going to feel about her afterwards, because even the Bible says, "May your breast satisfy him always." And so she was, it reflects on all these thoughts she had about the cancer, but also all these thoughts she had about the people she loved in her life, and just expressing how she walked through the entire thing, and her feelings and her relationship with God is definitely in there, because she definitely was in a faith fight. What most people don't understand is that when you say faith fight, you're not fighting against your faith. You're using your faith as the sword, as the weapon to fight whatever you're fighting. In this case, it was the cancer, and she did. It was amazing, that fight, because she basically went from the size of a mass in her breast, the size of a baseball, softball, to the size of a grape in a month and a half, 2 months. And even her breast cancer surgeon, who was the head breast cancer surgeon at MD Anderson at the time, was completely amazed and astonished. And she just kept on saying, she's like, this is not regular results. This is a gift. She basically, it's the same as saying it is a miracle. But, so I was sitting there witnessing all of this. And so it really just covers that journey with her, and, her relationship with God, her relationship with me, our son, everybody in her life, and really just shows it's a love story with cancer, not a cancer story with love.
Love that. Love that. And how long did it take you from, once you decided to do it to completion to write the book?
So the crazy thing was, when we went to Israel in 2019, and she was only diagnosed 3 weeks earlier before that. When we went to Israel, we had Apostle Hardy was along, and I think the third night in, right after she got baptized, and I got to help baptize her into Jordan, which was amazing.
Yes, that was so beautiful.
Yeah, that night he asked Bishop if he could talk to Tonya, and because he had a word for her and everything, and pulled her aside, and he had prophesied. I see books, I see speaking engagements and all that stuff. So we're like, praise God, she's going to live. She's going to make it through this. So at no point did we ever have any doubt. We just thought she was going to beat it like the last time. I mean, it was a lot for her. I mean, she was devastated by being diagnosed. But so when she got diagnosed, or when she started hospice, I'm like, what's this about? I mean, why are we doing this when, she was supposed to live and all that stuff? I went back and listened, because we actually recorded his prophetic word to her and everything. He never said, I see you doing speaking engagements, I see you doing books. But I was still like, because I didn't think about myself writing it. And then two of our sisters at the church, Wandria and Giselle, out of the blue, sent a message saying, hey, this is after she started hospice, we'd like to, help ghostwrite her book, to get it started. And so that was like where I was like, okay, now it's making sense. I get it now. So they started the book process, talked to me and everything, and I gave them the notes and everything. And they started the process of writing the book. However, I was working on the second book already, because it was fresh to me. And I realized in writing the second book that they couldn't write the first book, because they can take all the notes from me they want and everything. I knew Tonya inside and out. I knew her feelings and all that stuff. And so they were kind of struggling with it anyway. And so I let them know. I was like, I'm gonna write that one. So um, yeah, it really was an amazing thing, but it was tough. It was tough to
Yeah. What would you say was the most challenging thing in the process of writing the book?
starting with the undiagnosed ADHD, which it made it hard to focus. Second of all, I'm not a author. That is never what I set out to do. I've been told I was a good writer and everything, but I never thought about writing. I thought about writing our story. We were supposed to be writing our story intertwined, and so that's book number 4 down the line quite a ways. But the challenging part would be the grief. Was extremely heavy, and it's hard to even express how heavy sometimes, other than feeling like all the air is sucked out of your lungs and you can't even breathe. Sometimes the grief is so heavy. So going through that process and having very little focus. I mean, grief and ADHD do not mix for a very good focus. So there was that, not knowing what I was doing in writing a book, and the first thing about it. But I just did according to the way I wrote it, the way thought Tonya would want it written, like it was her. I didn't worry about the details of what an author is supposed to do and how it's supposed to be written. I just wrote. And so it was tough getting through that, and I dictated a lot of the book. I used Siri and dictated. Me and Siri don't get along. I don't know if she just doesn't understand deep voices or whatever, but I really wish iPhone would divorce Siri and marry Alexa, because she understands me much better. So, that was a part, because I'd go back and read everything I said, and some of the stuff, like, where did that word come from? Some of it didn't even make sense, so I had to remember what it was. And one time, it deleted the whole entire dictation, deleted almost a whole entire story, and I just got through my phone that time. So there was a lot of little things. This has been the hardest project ever did, and the challenges came far and wide. And sometimes it'd be outside things. Up until the very time of me getting this book, right now there's still struggles going on, little attacks that keep me from trying to write it, and just overwhelming me with things. My son had a car accident and stuff like that, just kind of sidetracked me. It was the hardest project I've ever done, but it was going to be the most rewarding. I just have to get across that finish line, and now that finish line is a week and 1 day away. So I put the release for my birthday on July 31st. So.
Awesome. I commend you. That's a lot. And going through grief, I think it's therapeutic to write. Yeah, it's therapeutic to write. That's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, and that's one thing I tell people in their grief is to keep a journal. I tell them to do like I did, which is dictate it, because speaking the words is better for me than writing the words. You're saying what you need to say, and so to me that was important. But it's getting written down. It's verbalized into my notes. I use the notes app on my iPhone, and my journal is very detailed, but it's also very confidential, because it's going to turn into a book. But there's a lot of things that aren't going to be put in there, because I talk about everything and everyone. And so I have to keep certain things that are just in journal, so I can look back 10 years and be like, wow, I forgot I felt like that, about certain things. But that grief book is going to be very transparent. So, yeah.
Indeed. So what do you want people to take away from The Spider and the Butterfly?
If I'm thinking through Tonya's eyes, Tonya would want everybody to be encouraged, be inspired, be motivated, and understand that they can beat it. And to remember to live while they're living, not just fight for their life, but fight for their life, and, not allow it to interrupt as much as possible. There's certain things you don't have any choice about, but to be inspired by her story, she would tell you that she was the miracle, and that they can be the miracle too. Tonya was not the type of person that felt like she was above anybody else. If she could do it, they could do it, kind of thing. Um, and just to understand the love that she had um, for people, the love that me and her had together, and be inspired by that as well. So just and for me personally, it's about sharing her legacy and the fact that this was not an ordinary woman. She might not have been on the news, she might not have been in the movies or whatever, but she lived an extraordinary life and impacted the people around her. When she walked in a room, she changed the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's stories in there about how she's done that. And so it really is just about people reading and reflecting and just seeing how amazing she was, just doing ordinary everyday things.
Indeed, indeed. That is beautiful, and it's a great synopsis of, like you said, her legacy and who she was to so many people.
Yeah.
And you were fortunate enough to experience that and to
Yeah.
have that, as
Yeah.
part of your life and as part of your legacy.
Yeah.
So, if you were to put on your author hat and just give a tip or suggestion or something to other people who are writers who want to write a book, what would you share?
Be true to yourself. Don't write what you think people want to hear. Write what you feel you're passionate about, and write your passions. If you're not passionate about the book, nobody else is going to be. And so, whatever the subject you write about, don't write just to write. Write with meaning and purpose, and write about the things that are meaningful and purposeful to you. Somebody needs to hear it. I have a little bag that says, keep writing. You never know when your story is going to be somebody's survival kit or a lifeline. So, and it's very true. You never know who you're um, impacting. I'm on TikTok a lot, and I make a lot of videos about the grief and about Tonya. And um, I even had somebody, um, a wife, contact me last year and ask me if I could kind of mentor her husband. This is, I don't know where they even live. I think they live in Louisiana, because he wants to become a better husband. And just based on what she saw, how I talked about Tonya and how I represented her, she knew I would be good for that. And so, it really was not knowing that you're impacting people unless they let you know. So yeah, you never know who you're impacting until you do, and then they let you know, and it helps you keep going and help you realize that as hard as it gets, because this book was extremely hard to get done. I knew it needed to get done, not for me. It wasn't about me. It was, and it wasn't completely about Tonya. It was about, God using us to help other people through their battles.
Indeed, indeed. I want to congratulate you and commend you uh,
Thank you.
for pushing through a very, very difficult process in birthing a beautiful, beautiful giant butterfly that's going to take flight and bless so many people. This story, your story together with Tonya, and you know the things that are coming in the
Yeah,
future
yeah,
are all going to be a blessing. I see your TikTok videos too. They're humorous, but
yeah, yeah.
they're great. I think they're great for grief. I call it grief relief.
Mhm. That's why I put on there. I put briefly for some of them, because people don't necessarily always need to see the sadness in it. They need to see the humor that comes out of your grief sometimes, because sometimes some of the things are just silly, and so you find a way to laugh at your grief. People need that. They need to be able to laugh, and some people might not understand it, because you can be real raw in your grief, and it's like, look, don't go getting all preachy with me and everything like that. Don't go trying to lecture me. You have no idea unless you've been there.
Right.
Shut it up, and just, if you can't enjoy the video, you can't handle the shock and some of the blatant things that are said, understand it's not for you. So, and let the grievers do what they got to do. Sometimes it might be crazy, but they're just trying to survive. They're just trying to get
Yeah.
minute to minute. It's they're not even trying to get day to day. Sometimes it's just moment to moment. You can go from laughing to crying to laughing to crying to crying to crying to not crying anymore because you're so exhausted, all in one day. So all in 1 hour, really. But so it really is an amazing thing when you can help other people get through their process, and that's what's happening. So
Yeah. Well, I think this book is going to be a lifeline. I
yeah,
think what God has for you, in terms of how you're going to be helping other people, you're going to be a lifeline for people in now. You're doing it now, but it's going to continue in a way that you
yeah.
probably hadn't expected. So, how can people get the book?
The book is going to be available. I published it, self-published it through Amazon, so it'll be available on Amazon under the title on July 31st. They did a little oops at first, and they accidentally allowed it to be pre-ordered, but they took that back because you can't pre-order, unfortunately. So July 31st, it'll be available under the name. It's the spider and the butterfly, so that's the cover. Um, uh, and so it's there. I'm also going to make copies available on the TikTok shop and probably my Etsy store, which is MTAC, More Than a Conqueror. For those were going to be for people that want signed copies.
Okay.
So the book is normally $20. It'll probably be $25 on Etsy and TikTok for if you want an actual signed copy. And Bishop actually gave me an amazing idea. And there's also, I'm doing a book release on August 3rd at our church, Victory in Christ Christian Center in Westville, New Jersey. Bishop gave me an amazing idea, which is I got a stamp made with Tonya's signature. So at the book signing, her signature will also be on the book as well. So, that was a great idea. And so I got that stamp made. I actually already have it, and I've been stamping things just because I can, So yeah, that's the way it's going to be available the most, and at the book signing. So I have author copies already sent my way that will be available that day as well.
Awesome. Awesome. And then you mentioned some other books. So, what other projects do you
Yeah.
have brewing? Yeah.
So the second book will be from my point of view, and that's her second battle with the cancer, and that one is called The King and the Butterfly. Because it's really my observation and my witnessing of her relationship with God, and what an amazing thing that was to witness, and how much that really grew my faith by watching her faith. So that book it's actually done. I'm done writing it. Now I just have to send it to the editor and all of that. And now that I know what that process is like, it'll come out a lot quicker. I'm thinking by the end of the year, that should be out as well. And then the third book is my grief journey. And that is it's going to be a very transparent book, and it might hurt some people's feelings, but they need to understand. And I even write it in the introduction. It's not about blasting you. It's about giving understanding to people about what a griever goes through and what they're facing, what they're feeling. And sometimes how you say some insensitive things, or things that, I'm sorry, I don't know how else to say it, but some dumb things. So it's my journey through grief, and my feelings and my thoughts, and my truth.
Yeah.
And I make it very clear, like, you don't bother arguing with me about it. This is my truth.
Right.
It doesn't have to be the facts. It doesn't have to be whatever. This is how I feel. This is how other grievers feel. And so I represent a lot of grievers, not just widows and widowers, but just people that are going through grief in general. But it's my journey, and I have a lot to say in that book. And that book is going to be titled Joy Comes in the Morning, and MOURNING. And then down the line somewhere will be our life story, combined, of Tonya's mind, basically starting from before I was born all the way up, and it ends where the first book starts. And so that book is called The Lion and the Butterfly. So, and I already made the book covers for all of these, because that way I have a vision for what it's going to look like ahead of time. So it has me, it gives me a finish line. Like, okay, we're working towards getting that, and so I know exactly what was gonna say. So, yeah, that's what I'm working on right
Wow,
now.
that's beautiful, and it's I actually see the full circle. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
full circle.
exactly. So,
Yeah, which is
yep.
that's a beautiful thing. Anything else that you want to share about the book, about the journey, about grief, about
Um,
anything before we wrap?
basically just it's not your typical, and I don't say this, with arrogance or ego or anything. It's not your typical book because I'm not your typical author, and we did not have a typical marriage,
Mm.
and
Had a
so
phenomenal marriage.
yeah, we really did, and
Mm.
so it's um, probably not the same kind of book anybody would be used to. It's not going to be your typical cancer story, and it's not going to be your typical love story.
Mhm.
So it's really is something that I believe in wholeheartedly, and I can say I know her well enough to know she'd be very proud of me for getting it done. And so
Mhm.
it was a tough thing, and so I'm not just going to promote it a little bit. It's something I believe in so much. I'm going to be sharing it for a long time and as far and wide as I can. So
Mhm.
I thank everybody in advance for their support. And yeah, I want to work on an audio book for it, but that'll come sometime later. So,
Awesome. And how can people contact you?
the easiest way would be, and I mean, social media. Facebook is Martin Owens. TikTok is under She Called Me Mar, um, all one word. Um, and under Instagram the same way, or they can email me at iamMTAC@gmail.com, which is basically I am more than a conqueror at gmail.com, but it's MTAC at gmail.com. So,
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you.
thank you. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
for
Anytime I
sharing.
get a chance to talk about Tonya, I am going to be more than willing to take it and enjoy it. So,
Indeed, indeed. Just for sharing yourself, sharing parts of your story, because there's so many other things. Like I think one of the things you had shared with me is about your date nights, which I thought was
oh,
phenomenal as well. That you
yeah,
all didn't miss a date night. You
yeah,
pre-recorded the ones that
yep. 300 out of in almost 15 years of marriage, we only missed 8 Tuesday nights, and some of them we made up ahead of time. So I mean, 765 date nights in all. So yeah,
wow.
that was our
Yeah.
thing. Yep.
I'm sure it's going to be in one of the books, and even before the books, like just in you being a blessing to other people about how they can also be phenomenal in life,
Yeah.
phenomenal in marriage,
Yeah. Yeah.
phenomenal and persevere
Yep.
through grief,
Yeah.
which is a very like you said, it's not just losing a loved one. It could be loss of a job. It could be,
Yeah.
loss of something financial or some
Right.
physical thing that
Yeah.
is causing you stress and strain.
Mm-hmm.
So grief comes in a lot of different ways, but there
Yes.
are ways to persevere through it. There are ways to triumph over it,
Yep.
and faith is very important.
Yep.
So, we're both people of faith. And for
Mm-hmm.
people who out there, if you're not, there is an amazing and wonderful God who hears you and sees you.
Yeah.
And when you think you are at your lowest, He is definitely carrying you.
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
even if you don't believe it, He's definitely carrying you.
Yeah.
And when all of that is over, there's a place to transition to that's actually quite beautiful.
Yeah.
um, and we grieve because we want that person or that thing that we lost. But when people transition to the Father, they're in a great space, and they're looking. Tanya's looking at this day,
Mm-hmm.
knowing it was coming, and she sees you, and she is loving on you
Yeah.
and acknowledging you as well for everything that you were to her
Yeah.
and who you are to people and who you're going to be to
Yeah.
people in the future. So I just commend you and I thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Really.
Thank you for doing this. So, for those of you who are watching, thank you for tuning in. I'm sure you have received something of value through this process. I always talk about a Lionsview lifestyle, and It's like, what is a Lion's View lifestyle? And it's basically when you actualize your dreams into reality, when the possibility for what's available, when your life is in order, when your finances are in order, when your health is in order, when your spiritual mindset is in order, you have an opportunity to live life fully. Um, don't take it for granted. Like Tonya, live the day fully. We have a lot of people who are transitioning. It seems like every week that
Mhm.
someone is making their transition, and it just says live today fully, love fully, do all the things, put in motion all the things that you want to do. Don't wait, because tomorrow is definitely not promised.
No, sure
It's
is.
not promised. So enjoy the day and maximize the day and all the gifts that God has given you to share with everybody else. So this is Lyonsview Financial Fridays. We stream live every Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube and Facebook. And until the next broadcast, keep living your your best life. Thank
Yes, yes,
you.
yes, yes.
Thank you.